Commander Vrathkar stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the small blue planet on his screens. His scales, darker than the void of space itself, caught the dim light as he moved. He had done this 1,000 times before. Find a new species. Make them bow. Add their world to the Imperium. Simple. The Draconic Imperium had ruled the galaxy for longer than most species could count. 12 million years of conquest. 12 million years of dominance. Every species they met either joined willingly or died quickly. There was never a third option. Vrathkar's second officer, a younger dragon named Kelth, pulled up the data on the planet's inhabitants. They call themselves humans, Commander. They achieved basic spaceflight only 2 generations ago. Soft skin, no natural weapons, short lifespans. They will surrender quickly. Vrathkar nodded. Of course they would. They always did when they saw what dragons were. His species had evolved on worlds where the very air could burn you. Their scales could turn aside plasma fire. Their claws could tear through steel. They were built to dominate, and they had done so for millions of years. The fleet moved into orbit around Earth. Vrathkar sent the standard message, requesting a meeting with their leaders. To his mild surprise, the humans responded within the hour. They invited him to their orbital station. The station was primitive by dragon standards. Metal and glass held together with welds that Vrathkar could see. But it was clean, and it worked. The humans had built it themselves, which showed some level of ingenuity at least. When Vrathkar stepped through the airlock, he had to duck. The station was built for creatures much smaller than dragons. He towered over the humans who waited to greet him, his head nearly touching their ceiling. His breath came out in small wisps of smoke. The heat from his body made the air shimmer. The humans did not run. That was the first surprise. A middle-aged man in a simple dark suit stepped forward. Commander Vrathkar, I'm Ambassador Chun. Welcome to Unity Station. Would you like some coffee before we begin? Vrathkar stared at the human. Coffee. They wanted to offer him a beverage. As if this were a social visit between equals. He felt Kelth tense beside him, insulted by the casual tone. We are not here for pleasantries, Vrathkar said. His voice rumbled like an earthquake. I am here to deliver the terms of your incorporation into the Draconic Imperium. Ambassador Chen nodded, as if Vrathkar had simply commented on the weather. I see. Well, perhaps we should sit down to discuss that. We've prepared a conference room. The conference room had chairs built to hold a dragon's weight. That was the second surprise. The humans had studied them, prepared for them, made accommodations. Most species were too terrified to think practically when dragons arrived. Vrathkar sat, and Chun sat across from him. Several other humans were present, but they remained quiet. Chun folded his hands on the table. Commander, we've received your message about joining your Imperium. We've looked at the terms. They're very generous by your standards, we understand. Protection, access to trade networks, technology sharing. In exchange, we provide resources and acknowledge your authority. Yes, Vrathkar said. These are the terms. You have 1 standard cycle to prepare for integration. Chun smiled. It was not a nervous smile. Commander, we'd like to propose a different option. Mutual respect and voluntary trade between equals. No submission required. The room fell silent. Vrathkar felt his blood heat, small flames flickering at the corners of his mouth. Kelth stood abruptly, his tail sweeping across the floor. The other dragons in the delegation growled, a sound like rocks grinding together. Vrathkar held up one clawed hand, and his officers went quiet. He leaned forward, his massive head moving close to Chun. The human did not flinch, did not look away. Do you understand what we are? Vrathkar asked quietly. We have conquered 847 species. We have broken worlds that resisted. We have turned entire systems to ash. We are the apex of galactic civilization. And you are children playing with rockets. Chun met his eyes. Yes, Commander. We understand what you are. The question is whether you understand what we are. Vrathkar sat back. The statement was so absurd, he almost laughed. You are prey that has learned to build tools. Nothing more. Perhaps, Chun said. But we're prey that would like to remain independent. We're not asking you to leave the galaxy, Commander. We're asking you to leave us alone. Now Vrathkar did laugh. The sound filled the room, deep and resonant. His officers joined him. The humans waited patiently for the laughter to end. You amuse me, Vrathkar said finally. I will give you one of your Earth years to prepare. Use that time to organize your surrender. Teach your people about the Imperium. Make the transition smooth. This is more time than we have given any species in millennia. Be grateful. And if we decline? Chun asked. Then we will take your world by force, and the transition will be much harder for your people. Many will die. Cities will burn. But in the end, you will bow or you will be extinct. Those are the only outcomes when dragons come to your world. Chun stood and extended his hand. Another human custom Vrathkar had learned about. A gesture of agreement or farewell. Vrathkar stood as well, towering over the human. He took Chun's hand in his clawed grip, careful not to crush the fragile bones. Thank you for the meeting, Commander, Chun said. We'll see you in a year then. Vrathkar returned to his ship feeling satisfied. The humans had not collapsed into immediate submission, but they would. They always did. He had given them time to come to terms with reality. By the time he returned, they would be ready to kneel as his fleet prepared to leave Earth's orbit. Kelth approached him. Commander, do you think they will actually resist? Vrathkar watched Earth growing smaller on his screens. No, they are merely in shock. They need time to understand what facing the Imperium means. When we return, they will have prepared their surrender. It is what prey does when the hunter gives them time to think. Kelth nodded, satisfied with this answer. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. On Unity Station, the other diplomats turned to Chun. Do you think that was wise? One asked. Challenging them like that? Chun walked to the window and looked at Earth below. We didn't challenge them. We simply told them the truth. They can come back in a year, and they'll find out what happens when they push humans into a corner. They think we're prey. They think we'll panic and surrender. He turned back to his colleagues. They have no idea what kind of prey we actually are. Start making the calls. Every nation, every leader, every military commander. We have 1 year to prepare. 1 year to show these dragons what 12,000 years of human warfare has taught us. One of the diplomats smiled grimly. They're going to regret giving us that year. Yes, Chun agreed. They are. Commander Vrathkar returned to Earth exactly 1 year later. His fleet was 3 times larger than before. He had brought overwhelming force because he expected the humans might have second thoughts. Perhaps they had built some defenses. Perhaps they would try one futile gesture of resistance before accepting reality. It was what most species did. His sensors detected human ships at the edge of their solar system. Not many, maybe 20 vessels. They were crude things, clearly retrofitted for mining ships and cargo haulers. Some still had civilian markings visible on their hulls. Vrathkar felt something close to pity. They had tried. It was admirable in the way a small animal baring its teeth at a predator was admirable. Futile, but brave. He opened the communication channel. Human vessels. This is Commander Vrathkar of the Draconic Imperium. Stand down and prepare to receive boarding parties. Your resistance is noted and will be considered when determining your world status in the Imperium. The response came quickly. A woman's face appeared on his screen. She wore a military uniform and had the bearing of someone who had seen combat. Her dark skin was marked with old scars, and her eyes were steady. "Commander Vrathkar, this is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We're not here to surrender. We're here to negotiate." Kelth hissed from his station. They dared to negotiate? After a year to prepare, this is their answer? Vrathkar silenced him with a gesture. "Admiral, you have 20 ships. I have 200. This is not a negotiating position." "Numbers aren't everything, Commander," Okonkwo replied. "We spent a year studying your species. Your history is remarkable. 847 conquered species. But do you know what we noticed?" Vrathkar narrowed his eyes. "What?" "You've never fought a real war. Not in 3 million years. You show up with superior force, and species surrender. You integrate them. You move on. You're incredibly good at conquest. But you've forgotten how to fight an actual war. Because no one has been foolish enough to make us fight one," Vrathkar said. His voice carried a warning now. Okonkwo smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "Commander, humanity has been at war with itself for our entire existence. We've had 2 world wars that killed hundreds of millions. We've developed 10,000 different ways to fight. We've learned how to fight enemies who are stronger than us, faster than us, better equipped than us. We've been doing it for 12,000 years. Your species fighting itself is not the same as fighting us," Vrathkar said. "Maybe not," Okonkwo agreed. "But it means we're really, really good at fighting things that outclass us. Your species evolved to dominate. Ours evolved to persist. You're apex predators, Commander. We're persistence hunters. Do you know what that means?" Vrathkar did not answer. He had read about persistence hunting in the human data files. It was how early humans hunted on their world. They would chase prey for days, never stopping, never giving up, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. It seemed like a crude method, but it had worked for them. "It means we don't have to beat you today," Okonkwo continued. "We just have to make you tired. Make you spend resources. Make you question whether this is worth it. We're not asking you to lose, Commander. We're asking you to decide if winning is worth the cost." Vrathkar had heard enough. "Your philosophy is interesting, Admiral, but it will not save you. Final warning. Stand down or be destroyed. We choose option 3, Okonkwo said. Make you work for it." Her ship's weapons powered up. It was a pathetic gesture. One human ship against his fleet. Vrathkar gave the order, and his lead cruiser fired a plasma lance. The beam of superheated matter crossed the distance in seconds and struck Okonkwo's ship dead center. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash. Vrathkar felt satisfied for exactly 3 seconds. Then his sensors started failing. One by one, his ships reported loss of long-range scanning. Communications became garbled. Navigation systems showed conflicting data. The remaining human ships scattered in what looked like random directions. But Vrathkar suddenly realized it wasn't random at all. "Report!" he roared. Kelth worked frantically at his station. "They had equipment on that ship, Commander. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon. It activated when the ship was destroyed. It's disrupting our systems across the fleet. They sacrificed their admiral?" Vrathkar could not believe it. Leaders did not sacrifice themselves in the opening move of a battle. "Not quite," another officer said, pointing at his screen. "I'm picking up an escape pod from that ship. It ejected before impact. The admiral is alive." Vrathkar stared at the tactical display. The humans had deliberately provoked him into destroying their lead ship, knowing it would blind his fleet. And they had done it in a way that looked like defiance rather than strategy. They had made him think he was winning. "Restore systems," he ordered. All ships, switch to backup sensors. Find those human vessels. It took 20 minutes to get basic functionality back. By then, the human ships were gone. Not destroyed, just gone. They had vanished into the asteroid belt that ringed this system's outer planets. Search the belt, Hrothgar commanded. Flush them out. His fleet spread out and began scanning the asteroids. It was slow work. There were millions of rocks to check, and the human ships had powered down their engines to avoid detection. They were hiding like prey, but prey made mistakes. After 6 hours, one of his scouts detected a human ship. Hrothgar sent 3 cruisers to intercept. The human ship tried to run, and his cruisers pursued. They caught it in open space and opened fire. The human ship took damage but kept moving. Escape pods launched. Hrothgar's cruisers closed in for the kill. Then the human ship did something unexpected. It aimed itself at the nearest cruiser and accelerated, using its last power for one final push. The cruiser tried to evade, but the human ship was too close. They collided. Both ships exploded. The other 2 cruisers pulled back, but debris from the explosion damaged them. One lost its main engines. The other had its hull breached. Hrothgar watched in disbelief. The humans had deliberately crashed their own ship. Why would they do that? They could have surrendered. The crew would have lived. Commander, Kelf said quietly, I don't think they plan to surrender. Ever. The pattern continued. Over the next week, Hrothgar's fleet found and destroyed 6 more human ships. But each time, the humans made them pay for it. They used suicide runs, hidden mines, improvised explosives. They fought like cornered animals, taking down 1 or 2 dragon ships with each loss. Hrothgar had started with 200 ships. After 7 days of hunting in the asteroid belt, he had 173. The humans were down to 12 ships. By the numbers, he was winning. But Hrothgar had never lost. 27 ships in a single campaign before. Ever. He pulled his fleet back and sent a message to Earth. Humans, you have fought bravely. But you are losing. Surrender now, and no more of your people need to die. The response came from Okonkwo again. She was on a different ship now, still alive. Commander, you have superior numbers and weapons. You should have crushed us in a day. But it's been a week, and we're still here. Still fighting. How long can you keep this up? Because we can keep it up for years. You have 12 ships left, Hrothgar said. Today, Okonkwo replied. But we're building more. And every day you spend here, you learn our tactics. But we learn yours too. And Commander, we're much faster learners. Ask yourself, is this worth it? Is one stubborn planet worth bleeding your fleet dry? Hrothgar cut the communication. He stared at the tactical display. She was right, and he hated that she was right. This should have been over. But the humans refused to follow the script. They refused to surrender. They refused to die efficiently. Kelf, he said, send a message to the Imperium. Request reinforcements. Double the fleet size. Kelf hesitated. Commander, that will be noted in the reports. Requesting reinforcements against a species that barely has spaceflight. I don't care, Hrothgar said. These humans need to be taught a lesson. We will show them what happens when you refuse the Imperium. But even as he said it, a small doubt crept into his mind. For the first time in his long military career, Hrothgar wondered if he had miscalculated. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make victory too expensive. And he was beginning to understand that there was a terrible logic to that. Strategy. The reinforcements arrived 3 months later. Hrothgar now commanded 400 ships, the largest fleet he had ever led. The Imperium Council had sent them without question, but he had seen the concern in their messages. 400 ships for one primitive world. It was unprecedented. The humans had used those 3 months well. The remaining ships had continued hit-and-run attacks, never standing to fight, always striking and vanishing. Rathkar had lost another 15 ships to human tactics. Mines hidden in cargo containers. Missiles that pretended to be disabled satellites. Even a human ship that had disguised itself as space debris until a dragon cruiser came close enough to board. But now he had overwhelming force. No more half measures. The Council had authorized him to make an example of Earth, show the galaxy what happened to species that refused the Imperium. He gathered his fleet and moved toward Earth's moon. The humans called it Luna. They had built military installations there, and Rathkar intended to destroy them. Once Luna fell, Earth would see their situation was hopeless. The human fleet met him at Luna. They had more ships now, maybe 150. Still badly outnumbered, but they had rebuilt faster than Rathkar expected. How were they producing ships so quickly? Admiral Okonkwo hailed him. She looked tired. They all looked tired. But they were still here. "Last chance, Commander," she said. "Turn around. Leave our system. This doesn't have to continue." "You have lost," Rathkar replied. "I have 400 ships. You cannot win this battle." "Probably not," Okonkwo agreed. "But we can make you pay for it. Every ship you lose is one your Imperium needs somewhere else. How many can you afford to lose before the Council starts asking questions? Before other species start wondering if dragons can bleed? We have bled before. It changes nothing." "Not like this," Okonkwo said. "Not from a species you were supposed to conquer in a week. Commander, this is my last offer. Walk away. Tell the Council we're not worth the cost. We'll stay in our system. We won't expand. We'll trade fairly. No one else has to die." Rathkar almost considered it. Almost. But he thought about the 847 species who had knelt. If he walked away now, some of them might think they could resist too. The Imperium was built on the certainty of dragon dominance. Doubt was more dangerous than any weapon. "No," he said. "Today you learn what defiance costs." He cut the communication and gave the order. His fleet advanced. The Battle of Luna lasted 18 hours. It was the bloodiest space combat in recorded dragon history. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Ships with damaged engines rammed themselves into dragon cruisers. Crews in space suits bored dragon vessels through hull breaches and set off explosives. Human fighters swarmed around the larger dragon ships like angry insects, targeting sensors and weapons. Rathkar had never seen anything like it. The humans seemed to welcome death if it meant taking a dragon ship with them. They sang over their communications, sang as they died. Sang songs about ancient battles and last stands in refusing to surrender. One human ship, crippled and venting atmosphere, managed to position itself between a dragon dreadnought and Luna's surface. When the dreadnought fired its planet-killer weapon, the human ship took the hit. It vaporized instantly, but the dreadnought's weapon needed time to recharge. In that time, human missiles from Luna hit the dreadnought's exposed weapons port. The ship broke apart. Another human vessel, its crew dead and systems failing, was remotely piloted into the middle of Rathkar's formation. It detonated its reactor. The explosion damaged 6 ships. Kalth worked his station frantically, coordinating the fleet's movements. "Commander, they're using every ship as a potential weapon. They're not trying to win the battle. They're trying to make the cost unbearable. Then we make them pay," Rathkar snarled. "All ships, focus fire on their largest vessels. Break them." The tide turned slowly. Dragon numbers and firepower began to tell. Human ships fell one by one. Escape pods launched, but many were targeted by dragon gunners. Rathkar did not stop them. This needed to be absolute. When it ended, the human fleet was gone, destroyed or retreated. Hrothgar had won the battle, but he looked at his fleet status and felt hollow. He had started with 400 ships. He had 241 left, nearly 40% losses. Against a human fleet a quarter the size of his own, he had won, but it felt like losing. "Commander," Kelf said quietly, "we're receiving a message from Earth." Okonkwo appeared on screen again. She was bandaged, burns visible on her face. Her ship had clearly taken damage, but she was alive. "You won your battle, Commander," she said. "Congratulations. How many ships did you lose? 150? 160? That is not your concern," Hrothgar said. "It's going to be the Council's concern," Okonkwo replied, "because we're already building more ships. We lost 150 today. By next month, we'll have 200. And we'll fight this same battle again. And again. And again. How many times can you afford to win, Commander?" Hrothgar said nothing. He had no answer. "We're not trying to beat you," Okonkwo continued. "We're trying to make you quit. Because that's what we're good at. We don't stop. Ever. You can kill billions of us, and the survivors will keep fighting. You can destroy our cities, and we'll build new ones. You can win every battle, and we'll make sure each victory costs you more than the last. That's what persistence hunting means, Commander. We outlast you." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Your species is ruled for 12 million years. Ours has existed for maybe 200,000. But in that time, we've survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and countless wars with ourselves. We're survivors, Commander. Is literally what we're best at. Can you say the same?" The communication ended. Hrothgar stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Then he turned to Kelf. "Prepare a message to the Council. I need to speak with them, personally. What will you tell them?" Kelf asked. Hrothgar looked at the debris field that had been the Battle of Luna. Pieces of human and dragon. Ships floating together in the void. So much death. And for what? A planet that would just keep fighting? "The truth," he said finally, "that we might not be able to win this war. Not in any way that matters." The council chamber of the Draconic Imperium had stood for 8 million years. Its walls were carved from a single massive crystal that recorded every important decision in dragon history. Hrothgar stood before the 7 elder dragons, who governed the Imperium and tried to find words that would not sound like surrender. "We have lost 230 ships," he said. "The humans have lost over 300. By any measure, we are winning. But we are not winning fast enough." Elder Sareth, her scales white with age, leaned forward. "Explain." Hrothgar activated a holographic display. It showed the economic projections. The war has now lasted 8 months. In that time, human ship production has increased by 400%. They have converted their entire industrial capacity to war production. Meanwhile, our economy is based on tribute from conquered worlds and trade. Sustained warfare is not something we are designed for, because we have never needed to be, another elder said. We win quickly or we do not fight at all. Exactly, Hrothgar said. But the humans are fighting a different kind of war. They call it attrition warfare. The goal is not to win battles, but to make the enemy's victories too expensive to sustain. And it is working. Our fleet is becoming demoralized. We have lost ships to suicide attacks, to improvised weapons, to tactics we have never encountered. Our warriors are trained for dominance displays and swift conquest. They do not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to acknowledge defeat. He pulled up more data. Reports from across the Imperium. Subject species were watching the war with great interest. Some were beginning to ask questions. If humans could resist, why couldn't they? Unrest was growing. The humans are not just fighting us militarily, Hrothgar said. They are fighting us philosophically. Our entire civilization is built on the idea that dragons are naturally superior, that our dominance is inevitable. The humans are proving that determination can overcome natural superiority, that weakness can defeat strength through persistence and adaptability. Elder Sareth was quiet for a long moment. What do you recommend? This was the moment Rathkar had been dreading. Peace, a negotiated settlement that allows the humans to remain independent in their own system. The chamber erupted. Dragons roared their outrage. How dare he suggest surrender? The Imperium did not negotiate with prey species. They had never negotiated. Not once in 12 million years. Elder Sareth raised her voice above the chaos. Silence. The chamber went quiet. She looked at Rathkar. You believe we cannot defeat them? I believe we can, Rathkar said carefully. But the cost will bankrupt the Imperium. We would need to commit half our total military force to Earth's system for years. Maybe decades. The humans will not surrender, no matter how many we kill. Their history shows this pattern repeatedly. They have fought wars that lasted generations. They have cities that resisted sieges for years. They do not think like we do. For them, continuing to exist is victory, even if they lose every battle. They activated one final display. It showed human history. Their wars, their survival, their stubborn refusal to accept extinction despite countless disasters. They call themselves cockroaches sometimes, Rathkar said. A small insect from their world that survives everything. Poison, radiation, starvation. They mean it as an insult to themselves, but they also mean it with pride. They are survivors. And we cannot kill an idea of survival. Elder Sareth studied the data for a long time. The other elders watched her, waiting. She was the oldest, the wisest. Her word would carry the most weight. What would the humans accept? She asked finally. Independence. Trade rights. Recognition as a sovereign species. No tribute, no submission. They want to be left alone. And in exchange, they agree to remain in their system. They will not expand into Imperium space. They will honor existing territorial agreements. They are willing to sign a mutual non-aggression pact. One of the younger elders spoke up. This sets a terrible precedent. Other species will see this and think they can resist too. Other species do not have 12,000 years of constant warfare in their history, Rathkar replied. The humans are an anomaly. Their entire evolution pushed them toward this. Most species are not like this. We can present it as recognizing a unique situation rather than a general weakness. The debate continued for hours. Dragons were not used to compromising, and many wanted to continue the war on principle alone. But the economic data was damning. The unrest among subject species was growing. And most concerning of all, for the first time in millions of years, dragons were becoming afraid of combat. They were requesting transfers away from the Earthfront. Morale was collapsing. Finally, Elder Sareth made her decision. Send the humans our terms for peace. Make it clear this is a one-time offer. If they refuse, we commit everything. Total war. Their species ends. Rathkar bowed. Yes, Elder. 3 days later, he met Admiral Okonkwo on a neutral station built hastily between their territories. She looked exhausted. They both did. Rathkar had lost count of how many ships had been destroyed since the war began. The humans had lost more, but they kept building. He was running out of ships, and they were running out of people to crew them. Admiral, Rathkar said as they sat across from each other, the Council has authorized me to offer peace. Okonkwo leaned back in her chair. What are the terms? Independence for Earth and your solar system. Trade agreements on equal footing. Technology exchanges that benefit both species. In exchange, you agreed to stay within your system and recognize all existing Imperium territorial claims. No tribute? No tribute. No submission. You would be recognized as an independent power. Okonkwo was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed, but it was the laugh of someone who had survived something horrible. Tired. Relieved. Sad. Do you know how many of my people have died, Commander? How many ships we've lost? How many cities we've had to evacuate because we needed the materials to build weapons? I know, Hrothgar said. My people have suffered too. More than we have in millions of years. Then why are we doing this? Why did we have to fight at all? Hrothgar met her eyes. Because my people forgot that dominance and strength are not the same thing. We assumed that because we were physically superior, we would always win. We never considered that there might be other kinds of strength. He paused. You asked me once if I understood what humans were. I did not. But I do now. You are what happens when a species spends its entire existence learning to survive impossible situations. You turn suffering into strategy. You turn weakness into tactics. You refuse to accept that you can lose because losing means extinction, and you have decided that extinction is simply not an option. Okonkwo smiled sadly. We're too stubborn to die quietly. That's all it is, Commander. We're just too damn stubborn. Yes, Hrothgar agreed. And we have learned that stubbornness is more dangerous than we ever imagined. The peace treaty was signed 2 weeks later. News spread across the galaxy quickly. The reaction was mixed. Some species saw it as proof that the Imperium was weakening. Others saw it as wisdom, recognizing when a fight was not worth the cost. But every species understood one thing. A small, physically weak species had faced the might of the draconic Imperium and survived. They had lost more battles than they won. They had suffered terrible casualties. But they had not surrendered. And in the end, that had been enough. Hrothgar returned to his homeworld to find he was not celebrated. Many dragons saw the peace as shameful. But Elder Sareth summoned him privately. You did well, she told him. You recognized something our people had forgotten. That there are battles not worth winning. That sometimes the wise choice is to walk away. The humans will tell stories about this, Hrothgar said. They will say they defeated us. Let them, Sareth replied. We will tell our own stories. About how we learned humility. About how we discovered that 12 million years of dominance had made us inflexible. The humans taught us a valuable lesson, Commander. They showed us that the universe is more complex than we believed. That strength comes in many forms. She looked out at the stars. Perhaps, in another million years, we will thank them for it. Hrothgar left her chambers and stood on a balcony overlooking his world. Somewhere out there, humans were celebrating their survival. Building, growing, refusing to stay contained for long, he suspected. They were too curious, too stubborn, too determined to see what was beyond their little solar system. And when they came out into the galaxy, the Imperium would be waiting, not as conquerors, as equals. The thought should have bothered him. Instead, Hrothgar found himself looking forward to it. The humans would bring chaos and change. They would ask uncomfortable questions and refuse to accept traditional answers. The galaxy was about to become much more interesting. And the dragons, for the first time in 12 million years, would have to adapt. Perhaps Hrothgar thought that was exactly what they needed.